Hi.
Hello. Check.
It's quite a dangerous thing to, ask people come back from a potential tea, and so, I'm sure you will catch up with some tea after this. Um, this topic is something which really excited me, and that's how I landed in Taj Vivanta, Yashwantpur. Uh, and I'm so happy that we are talking about computer vision. Because as a technology storyteller, you crave to find examples from this part of the world where you can talk about things like computer vision, deep learning, artificial intelligence. And I think today we have just the kind of people we would like to have to tell us what is the state of computer vision, and are there actual applications that we can talk about in the Indian context. So, clearly the holy grail for everything is to mimic human brain or human behavior and then try and bring that in machines or algorithms or whatever you call them. We have seen the whole sci-fi side of it. I mean, I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Chappie and so on. But, if we could start with both of you giving a sense of, to get a sense from both of you about where are we when it comes to computer vision? In your experience, I mean, Krish, you worked at Google before and now solving these problems at Flipkart. So how do you describe where we are when it comes to computer vision?
Sure. Thanks, Pankaj. So it feels a little bit weird to talk about computer vision applications sitting in a forum like this. 20 years ago, when I was doing my PhD at an US university, it was very hard to find a girl who would date a computer vision, grad student. There was exactly one girl who wanted to date me, and she did it out of pity, which I found out after I married her after a few years. Why was it like this? Mostly because computer vision didn't deliver crisp, practical enough results for people to use. It was the area where you kind of cracked your head against extremely difficult mathematics only to deliver underwhelming results. That was the state of the art 20 years ago. In fact, 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I was in Google. Meaning it seems like I spent a lifetime in Google. I was in Google. Google was building building its own maps. I am saying this in a slightly storytelling sort of way, but we are in that kind of atmosphere. So Google was building maps, and I went to Sebastian Thrun, who was leading this. I said that we have satellite images. We could build computer vision maps with reasonably high accuracy, not perfect, from those satellite images. Sebastian kind of said that, okay, we can't deal with 95 or 99% accurate maps. Really, maps have to be 100% correct. So I said, okay, let me try something, and maybe the human beings would correct the last 1% of the errors. I built my program, it was deployed. Human beings started looking at them and started fixing the small errors that they were making. 7 days later, I went to the lab. I saw that they're coming. The first thing that the operator does is to shut down what the computer vision has shown that person and do it from scratch. Why? Because they said the thing mostly works. It makes a very subtle error somewhere. It's much harder to find that one little error and fix it. I would rather do everything from scratch. Even 10, 11 years ago, computer vision was in that kind of. From there, today, we are talking of deploying computer vision in actually self-driving cars. If it makes a mistake, people will get killed. It's not self-driven cars are not completely computer vision based. They do use many other cues. However, computer vision is a very, very first-class citizen in that area. This is the journey we have traveled, over a lifetime, and I would attribute almost the entire win to this one technology called deep learning. Deep learnings, these are several layered neural networks, very deep neural networks. Neural networks have been around for 20 years, 20 plus many years actually. So what made it work is this addition of layers. In the past, we couldn't have multi-layered neural networks. The hardware was limited. Jeff Hinton and his students kind of realized that there is a specialized hardware which gamers use. These are called GPUs, graphic processing units, that sit in most machines, most computers, and are capable of doing neural network kind of processing. That was one realization, and there were several other algorithmic things also. These together made this revolution possible. So last year's CVPR 2016, they have a challenge called ImageNet, where a machine has to recognize what's there in the photo and optionally actually draw a rectangle around that object. There are about 2,000 categories of things to be recognized, going from cards to, they have some such subtle variations. There is one category which is Newfoundland collie, and there is another one, a very similar dog, meaning the system has to distinguish between dogs that look pretty close to each other. Certainly it has to distinguish between wolves and dogs and such. So the error rate for the winning entry, which was a residual net, a type of deep learning network, was around 3%. In 97% of cases, this thing was able to recognize what's there in the photo and was able to localize, which is to say where in the photo that sought after thing is sitting, 3%. So this is enormous gap, meaning a previous generation researcher would not see such a quantum leap in one lifetime. We are lucky to be in this generation, and right now we are using computer vision for image similarity in Flipkart. I have some amazing results with me, developed in our lab. My team has developed these things. I wish sadly, I was told that I should have sent the slides way long ago for them to be shown here. I wish I could show them here, but they're with me. So, I would be happy to deal with them, show them to anybody offline if you're interested. So, yeah, in general, so overall, I would like to conclude with the remark that it's at a point where it's poised to take a quantum leap into the future. So if you have been toiling with computer vision for many years, doing the hard math and not getting girls, now your time has come. So, make most of it. Thank you.
So, as a storyteller, I can only wish that someday in future we'll see a team from here do something at ImageNet, right? Wishful, but why not? Navneetan is from Uncanny Vision. How do you summarize, where we are when it comes to vision side of things, and your own company you work with?
Our company's whole premise is based on vision. So our company's name is Uncanny Vision. We provide computer vision solutions for IoT devices. What Krishna was saying is quite relevant. This deep learning has just dramatically altered what computers are able to do. Until like 3 years back, computers were very far away compared to human vision. But today there are areas where the computer vision algorithms that he's talking about are getting closer, in some cases beating humans at understanding and recognizing objects. That is inconceivable 3 to 5 years back, inconceivable. And today algorithms are getting better. And why this is very, very crucial is because if you look at humans, more than half your brain cells go towards image processing in a way. The eyes just get the image in, right? But the brain is what really processes and understands. Half your brain is going to vision. And because of this, it's been extremely challenging. Until now, it's been extremely challenging to do computer vision at a realistic pace. What has happened is now the devices have gotten good enough to process these vision algorithms real time. So what we focus on in our company is we bring what he was talking about, these deep learning based applications to devices. For example, I was just kind of taking a picture while we're all here just to see if our algorithms work. On my phone, today I can run our deep learning algorithm, and I took a picture. It's kind of very bright, but software says this looks like a conference room. It is able to recognize, sitting on my phone, no network connection. Google obviously would do things on the cloud. We focus on doing things on the device. This phone, it's not a very expensive phone, it's able to recognize and tell this is a conference room. Of course, it's never seen this particular thing before. So that's where the device has gotten. We focus on bringing a lot of this to device. So I come from the chip industry. I was in the US for 13 years, working for a chip company. My partners, all of us have worked in the chip industry. We've always, like he said, longed about potentially this very fascinating software that can run on these devices and process images. In the past, it's been doing little edge detection, finding very simple patterns in images, but now we're able to do very, very interesting applications just sitting on these devices. So we can talk more as we go along in this discussion. So,
you know, it's one thing to have the ability to have computer vision. It's another thing to make sense of it. And and that also needs the kind of problems that you want to solve. Krish, you recently came to India and joined Flipkart. Do you see there are problems worth solving by applying this, or because the thing as an outsider I can tell you is that the gap between something which is sci-fi to reality, you wonder sometimes if this is a hype, right? But are there problems worth solving in your experience when it comes to this?
So do you mean in India or in general? So you mean in India, right? So the answer is yes. My team is actually launching products. I will just give you one example right away. I briefly alluded to that in my previous talk. So for example, let's say a user is looking at a certain dress item. Now we want to recommend we want to recommend similar dress items because the user may not buy exactly that item, or the user might want to buy more of that kind of thing. So now the similarity is a very vague concept. It's not like a well-defined. We are not looking for an identical image. So what is similar? I have some, I was regretting earlier about not being able to show slides. I have some slides where you have a t-shirt with, let's say, a skeleton, kind of spooky, ghost-like figure in the on the chest. Now, a human being would take another ghost-like figure, although they have very little similarity, and call them similar, right? This machine is able to see that kind of spookiness, abstract concept-based similarity. Or it would match a checkered shirt with another checkered shirt, not just another checkered shirt with similar spacing and thickness of stripes, which is to say the system can have a telescopic view, far away concept-like view, or a microscopic view. It can look at details at the same time. These are so this is one example. There are numerous others. So Amazon actually launched this. You can take out your photo. Supposing I like his shirt. It is a nice shirt, by the way. So I do this and take the photo and say, show me what Amazon or Flipkart has got like that.
From Amazon.
Yes. Okay. Well, I hope you change your buying habits. So I do this and I can show you, for example, what Flipkart has. I could even do a price comparison, right? Of very similar thing. What are the price comparisons?
Next time.
So these are in the e-retail business. Overall, I think you would be able to give more examples of this. So in e-retail, and object recognition is in general a very green area.
Sure. So also the thing is, before you talk of examples, is there is a certain threshold when it comes to applying these technologies in real world problems, right? I mean, you need to have volume you need to have that much of data that can be thrown at these algorithms to get trained and learn and things like that. So we are not talking about small impact applications here, right? So what have you seen in your experience? Can you pick 2, 3 of them that?
Sure. These are, I mean, the kind of applications we are beginning to solve are just really interesting. These are, volume is there. Our biggest challenge is finding engineers. So if anyone's a computer vision engineer, come talk to me before you talk to Krishna, by the way, today.
Okay, this is all the record.
Yeah, but so for interesting applications, we're looking at, for example, bank ATMs. We're beginning to work closely with bank ATMs. So today, it's interesting. In this day and age, Bangalore, every other month you have a bank ATM getting robbed. And as in, it's very hard to break it. People just come and carry the whole ATM and then take it out, as an example. So today we have algorithms which can sit and learn what is normal things that happen in an ATM, all by itself. The software will just, this is called self-learning, and this is a very narrow area of unsupervised learning. Software can learn what is normal, and then someone comes and does something unexpected, like bring a crowbar and try to break the ATM. Software can immediately recognize, raise an alarm, send an alert, that kind of thing. This is just even 2 years back, this would have been impossible to solve. Today we have the algorithm, we're doing proof of concept. Then similar things, we're looking at while going on drones, can we map things in an agricultural area and find any unexpected thing and immediately raise an alert, send a picture. These are things, if we are not applying algorithms, you're basically not solving that problem today. That's the kind of problems we're looking at. There are problems that humans can do it and then you also do better, but there are greenfield, like you said, greenfield opportunities that we are opening because we have these algorithms. Especially now we're going to open 24-hour, if the Modi government has its way, in 24 hours they open everything. The security implications, how much more security you need to have is just phenomenal. In a place like India, unless we have automated, you might think, oh, security guards are going to lose jobs. No, we're going to be able to do much better security because we have these algorithms, as an example.
Sure. So,
I just wanted, that security thing reminded me of one more potential application. So one of the greatest strengths of this thing is in face recognition. So deep learning based computer vision face recognition, Facebook actually announced superhuman accuracy. In other words, Facebook is able to recognize faces in certain cases where humans cannot. We all have seen probably examples of that in our Facebook accounts. It's entirely conceivable to build a crowd surveillance. So, for example, there is a camera looking at a busy shopping place or a mall, and this thing basically scans every face, and it knows the faces of certain known terrorists, bad guys. So basically it will raise an alarm if it sees that there would be privacy implications, and that's an entirely different discussion on its own. But I think there is enormous value to be delivered here in the lines of the previous statement.
And just one last thought on that. Face recognition is so fundamental to humans. From the time you're a baby, face is the first thing you start recognizing, your mother's face and then other faces, right? It's so fundamental to humans. And he's talking about algorithms, just as of late last year, algorithms for the first time beating humans at recognizing faces. When you give enough number of faces, algorithms are able to recognize face better than humans. This just, we're talking about 6 months back. And so just, opening up a lot of opportunities that wouldn't have been.
Are there challenges and failures that you faced in your careers while you were at this? And can you pick one or two of them for people who would tackle this or want to do this going forward, that they can steer clear of them? And what would be one or two failures or challenges according to both of you?
Sure. Like one of the things we quite often run into at our work is there is this kind of big gulf between where our customers, when they look at computer vision, they look at, very skeptically, is this solvable? It's simple problems like actually object recognition. We can comfortably, you give us 1,000 objects, we can create a neural network model that will clearly, very well distinguish these objects, and we can do that. And customers, whereas on the other hand, we have customers with a lot of very high expectation that we can solve all of human vision problems, and today we are not there. And a lot of it boils down to where the chip technology is at, right? In terms of if you bring it to IoT device. On the cloud, you can do quite a bit in Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon are all doing it. But if you had to do it on a device, on your phone, on your car, in your car, for example, is a big, right now, we have autopilot on the Teslas, and it's kind of just on the edge where they're getting there, but not good enough. The kind of right point would be around 2020 when these chips are going to have custom hardware accelerators which get vision to the point of human vision, right? But these narrow algorithms, we can beat humans. And there are areas where it's easy to think that you can boil the ocean and solve a very massive problem, and you fail at it. We've had customers where we show something, they think of a big problem, and we failed in solving the entire problem, and they get disappointed.
I think Krish has a favorite failure story. He's been smiling.
So, one point I wanted to add to that first is, so on a concrete note, in my opinion, one of the hardest thing to deal with in deep learning is data, obtaining training data. Deep learning machines are hugely hungry of training data. It's extremely hard to find that volume of training data, and curating by humans is next to impossible. So most of our creativity usually goes in devising ways to, and this is why traditional computer vision has not died. Instead of actually providing the solution, these days it lives on to create candidate training data for the deep learning machines. So for example, for our similarity, we used old algorithms to kind of get candidate similarities, then got them vetted by humans. That always, the human doesn't have to do as much, as in starting from scratch. But on the other hand, the results are much better because you have a mixture of various algorithms, and they have been vetted by humans. So obtaining training data is a huge challenge. The other challenge is, I guess this is what you were referring to. I moved to India kind of recently, and one of my observations, and I apologize if this is not true for somebody, I have only seen a very short segment of Indian research. I taught a seminar in IISc very recently. I see one pervasive mindset issue everywhere, which is people have a huge tendency to bring a pre-trained model from somewhere else and apply it to their problem. That rarely works. You have to roll up your sleeves and be eager to retrain your own machine. It's not easy. Like I said, getting the data itself is a huge problem. In fact, these machines are not very easy to come by. These are severely more expensive than regular machines, because these need much GPU, and GPU machines are more expensive, even in Amazon or Google Cloud. And if you buy one on your desk, it's like factor of 4 or 5 expensive. But I would say it's money well spent. I would love to hear your opinion on that. It's money well spent, because you are never going to get real great results until you are willing to train for your problem. You may take somebody else's approach and start tweaking from it, but absolute grafting of something else on your problem is not going to work. And I would go out on a limb and say that I have a feeling this may be a pervading philosophy problem with, the way the country, this is inherited. We are going in the right direction. Things are changing greatly. However, a bit of the past, which is not so great, remains with us, which is to say we are more interested in grafting somebody else's solution, not develop our own solutions. I would love to be flamed on this, and I will be happy if I'm proved wrong. So,
kind of also this services hangover, maybe the software services outsourcing hangover, a bit of that.
Possibly. I don't have enough exposure to know about that.
I can say that. We say things and get away with it.
There's a lot of interesting companies coming on board, and there is a lot of work going on.
I hope that sort of companies, Uncanny Vision, and so they will pave the way for a different kind of future.
Yeah.
But right now, the dominant companies are not like this at all.
So, can we take, if there are any questions, and we can wrap this up? Like, if anybody wants to know anything, yeah.
Hello. Hi, this is Swaraj from daysinfo.com. I don't know, for some reason I just wanted to, kind of give my perspective on that particular question that you asked, where people take already experienced models somewhere else and implement it here. I think it's just the laziness in terms of inventing something new that typically gets in, saying, hey, if something has worked somewhere else, maybe a little bit of Indianization works here. But coming to the fact of visual itself, and we're talking about face recognition as one of the major things, and you're talking about again accuracy, superhuman accuracy, and things of that sort. Isn't it really difficult when to have what do you call it, a life and opinion of your own, if you're being monitored and probably even judged based on all these parameters that are then, because ultimately you're not going to keep that information just for reference sake. It is going to be churned into something different, and that's probably going to end up as statistics saying, hey, people with small eyes buy black color clothes more than whatever. I'm just giving you a very one. So isn't that going to be stereotyping people? Number one. Number two, isn't that actually going to affect probable buying patterns, probable consumption, probably even risking privacy in that case?
Sure. So,
Yeah. Do you use Facebook?
Yeah, I have to.
Right?
Can't help it.
I bet you already are being done, stereotyped, whatever is the kind of thought you have without the vision part already. So that's something, it's just a part of our generation. This is the human journey right now. But having said that, there are very interesting problems that we're solving in the area of security, for example, in agriculture, that it goes to fundamentally improving the human life. It's not about just getting you a better, just about getting you a better shirt or slightly more appropriate thing. We're solving life or death type problems, like in the kind of self-driving cars that is happening. I mean, today we have 2 lakh people dying on the roads in India. And of course, it's going to take a lot longer for us to get self-driving cars in India, but it's just a matter of time. It's going to happen, right? And when you have sufficient number on the road, we're looking at saving 2 lakh people a year. Maybe let's say we save 1 lakh a year. Now that's solution worth working on, right? So that stuff is being worked on today. You believe it or not, in the city of Bangalore, there are self-driving cars being tested by some companies in the city of Bangalore. And it's making slow progress, but it's happening, right?
No,
so those are fundamental problems we are looking at.
Is there any right now solutions that are happening because of this, right now? I mean, I understand these are futuristic views, and it's great that it's happening. Yeah. But right now, is there something that's being solved by the visual intelligence that we're talking about,
right?
Which is very vital, and which was not thought about for the past so many years.
We're just beginning to solve. We're just beginning. The real deep stuff is going to come, in my view. Life impacting stuff is going to come in the 5-year horizon. But we're beginning to solve. Very interesting.
yeah, I would. So I right now am not in an area which solves life and death questions. So I just can't claim that we are moving the state of the art. That's one thing, though. We are beating CVPR 2015's state of the art by a huge margin. I can actually quote numbers, but that would be boring. So in terms of fundamentalness and complexity of research, it's pretty much international standard, and we are moving that. It is not life and death, but that's not the business I'm in. I mean, no point in fudging about that. I am pretty sure, like he said, I am aware of another company in Chennai that is working on self-driving cars. They sometimes come and consult me, so I know what they're doing. So people are trying. That old mindset of West will develop new things and we will just craft those solutions here is changing. This is a new India. resurgent, and I'm very pleasantly surprised by it's not the same country I left many years ago. So, meaning extremely exciting to see all these things happening, and we are at the right place. Bangalore is probably the hub of most of that.
Yeah, 3 cheers to that. Good to hear that. I think there's time for one more question, just one question. Yeah,
So there is somebody there.
2, so yeah, after.
So I just want to, curious questions. Are there any novel computer vision problems that the Indian market and the Indian conditions are making us attack?
So India-specific computer vision problems.
Yes.
I think there are, in fact, the kind of crowd surveillance thing I was talking about may make a bit more sense in the Indian context, where security is quite lax. India is probably more exposed to terrorist attacks than many other countries. So that's a kind of half solution. This needs a long and more well thought out answer. The other huge area, I wouldn't be able to give exact concrete examples, but healthcare seems like a place where there would be huge India and computer vision overlap. So for example, this is vague, I apologize for that. So for example, it's very hard to send a qualified doctor who can scan, who can analyze an X-ray tomography and a CT scan result. Such a doctor won't go to a village. It's very hard to send. What about we setting up a kiosk? I am saying this because I know there is a small group in Indian Institute of Science working on similar things. So they set up a kiosk, which all it does, that kiosk, is to upload the scan image from that side, and it comes to a Bangalore doctor who is well equipped to look at these things. Or this Bangalore doctor would have a preponderance of very large number of such images, right? So the computer vision software does an initial diagnosis and analysis, and depending on its confidence, it just sends it back, or if it feels not fully confident, it would come. But we have a funnel. A lot fewer images are coming to this expert doctor. So, along those lines, I feel there are several. And
in terms of, do you need fundamentally different solutions? I don't know if that's true, but what is true is India's kind of technical vision problems are a lot more challenging than, say, Western problems. We work with Japan and US. Some of the problems are a lot more challenging. For example, surveillance, the number of people in a particular area, you end up, it's a lot more crowded. So it's more challenging computer vision-wise. Similar self-driving car, those problems are way more challenging in India than other places. But solutions you need are similar, just more challenging here than other places.
Yeah. So, okay, final question. We just have a minute left, so.
Hi, I'm Nilanjan. This is a more philosophical question. So will computer vision, when it really develops and is widely used for 5 years later or 10 years later, will it make us more dumb, or will we use our visual faculties in different ways?
I was waiting for man versus machine question. This is it.
so did we become more lazy when steam engine was invented?
No.
Right, so this is the hope. I don't know, my guess is as good as yours. I don't know what is going to happen. I would say such technologies in the ideal situation free our minds to do higher level stuff. Just like when muscle, 300 years ago, muscle was a very important part of what human beings did. Steam engine took the need for doing that. So people could devote most of their energy to not muscle-oriented things, but to brain-oriented things. In some sense, civilization leapfrogged. I'm hoping with computer vision doing a lot of low-level analysis, we are left to do more creative things. Like now we can devote ourselves to poetry and philosophy in earnest because the other problems are being solved solved by deep learning. So that's one way to
Completely.
look at it.
Completely in sync with Krishna on that.
Oh, okay. Let's have some tea. Thank you so much, guys.